Hello, my name is Peyton Hubel, and this is my lifespan timeline. A little bit about myself. I have lived my entire life in Clare, Michigan. I was born and then lived there throughout high school. After I graduated high school, I moved to the Saginaw area where I've spent my first 2 years of college at Delta. At Delta, I was lucky enough to play softball for 1.5 years as this season got canceled, but I did meet some of my very best friends and had a great time while doing it. From Delta, I transferred to SVSU this semester in order to go into their occupational program, hopefully. Two of my favorite things in the whole world would be my family and then traveling. I love to see the world. In the bottom left-hand corner is a picture of my family about 2 weeks ago when we went to Porcupine Mountain for a few days. It was beautiful and we had a great time. And then in the upper right-hand corner is a picture of my sister, my grandma, and I last summer when we got to go to Paris as a bucket list check off. It was so cool and I would recommend it to anybody that's interested in going. A little bit about my infancy. You're going to see a lot of pictures of my sister and I because that, I guess, is just the pictures I could find. But my reflexes and voluntary movements. So some of my reflexes during my infancy would be the stepping reflex. This reflex is when infants lift their feet and knees as if walking when they're held up in a standing position and kind of pushed forward, as if like nudged to go forward. Usually disappears by 3 months, but can be detected at birth. Another reflex would be the swimming reflex, which is when you hold the infant out, belly down, and they almost begin to dog paddle. This reflex usually disappears by 6 months, but is one of the reflexes that my dad noticed most in me. He said that it was one of the positions that I was most comfortable in, and I would stop whining when he held me like that, so they saw a lot of dog paddling when I was a baby. I just found it funny because it all comes full circle now that I'm learning about it. But the third reflex would be the parachuting reflex. And that occurs when you like put a child towards the floor or towards a wall and they put their arms out in front of them, almost like catching themselves or protecting themselves. And this appears around 6 months. So this starts showing when the other reflexes I just talked about start disappearing. Some of my voluntary movements during infancy, the sitting up was my first one. It occurs around 6 months, give or take a few months, and I started sitting up around 4 months old. Crawling occurs around 10 months, give or take a few months. I started crawling around 9 months, and I was talking to my dad about this, and he said I was never a normal crawler. I would only crawl with my front arms, obviously, and then one back leg. And it was always a different leg. I would use both my right and my left, but I could never quite figure out how to use both of them together. And then I started walking around 11 months, which normally occurs around a year old, give or take. So I was right on track with all of my voluntary movements for development. So more towards my childhood, a picture of my cousin and I graduating preschool, my foundational and specialized skills. Some of my foundational skills that I found the funniest when I was talking to my dad about them was my vertical jump. I was in the initial stage until around 4 years old. My dad was talking, he said I could never quite figure out how to actually jump off of the ground. I would just bend my knees and like try to jump up, but I would never leave the ground. Almost to the point where it's too late for me to ever learn how to jump, but I figured it out eventually, obviously. I'm still not the highest jumper, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I just found that funny. Along with kicking, I've never been a strong kicker. I'm still not a strong kicker, but I definitely have moved to the mature stage in skill-wise, just not very strong, but that's also not a very strong suit of mine in the foundational skill department. Different from that, throwing, my dad was talking, I was a quick learner and quickly moved through the initial and elementary stages to become a mature thrower with my skill development. Makes sense as I play softball and always have played softball, so I'm sure it just always came natural to me. One of the childhood specialized skills that I thought I would share would be learning to ride a horse. I grew up on a horse farm. My family still has horses. Everyone in my family has shown horses. So it's kind of destined for me to also learn how to ride a horse and show. But the progression into learning, the first thing we did was showmanship, which is just leading the horse around, being able to move the horse where you want it to go while on the ground. So that is the first picture I put down below, me just leading a horse around. From there, you go to lead lines. So I'm on, like when I was younger, I would ride the horse, but someone would still lead the horse around, just so someone always had control over the horse, just in case, because I definitely didn't know what I was doing. From there, you move to walk trot. So you're on your own, no one's leading you, but you don't go as fast as the horse can go. This way you can learn how to ride the horse on your own, but you don't have to be worried or scared or any of that sort. From that, you go to walk trot and then a slow canter. This just makes it so you have control over the horse still and can get a feel for all three different gauges that they can go into. From there, you learn more of the control, how to control the horse, how to make the horse move the way you want it to and look the way you want it to while you ride it. And then the last stage to really learning how to ride a horse would be speed, which is the last picture I have down there, me doing barrels. I was never super into speed. I always liked the slow stuff, but I did learn how for just in case I ever needed to. And then this type of practice would be a serial practice because we definitely built up the stages and the steps into how to become, how to ride a horse to its full potential. From there, you move on to adulthood, going through my milestones. I have a timeline set up. So in my 20s, I would like to complete my degree, find a job, and travel. I also would not mind moving to a different place, maybe out of Michigan, just really seeing the world and all it has to offer while I'm still young and can. In my 30s, I would like to start a family, move up in my career, possibly change specialties as occupational therapy has so many different opportunities. I definitely want to get to see more than one and be successful in more than one. And then I would probably move back home. If I ended up moving out of state in my 20s, I want to move back home as I start a family. In my 40s, I would be interested in becoming a professor. I probably don't want to practice OT my entire life, but would be interested to go back into the classroom and teach and share my experiences as a therapist. My children by 40s would be getting older and much busier, so I'd be following them around, supporting them in whatever they choose to do. And I'd also try to continue to travel the best that I can with the busy life that I'm sure I will have. In my 50s, my kids will be in high school or college, depending. So I'll be also supporting, following them around, maybe find a new hobby, something that'll keep me busy in the meantime. My parents will be getting older and will probably need more of my assistance as I will be around. And I would like to move up in education as a professor and maybe get my doctorate or do something cool in that sort. In my 60s, I would like to retire. I'll be continuing to watch my kids grow up. And as I retire, I will travel to the must-see places that I didn't get to see before. I will have hopefully a bunch of time on my hands, so I will get to go to the further away destinations. In my 70s, I'll be having grandkids maybe, buy a house in Florida. That's definitely on the bucket list, just to say I have a house in Florida. And I'd love to buy an RV and travel the US in an RV. I always have wanted to do that, and I will not give up until I do that. In my 80s, I will continue to host holidays for my family, support my grandkids, and continue to cook and bake. I say this because my grandparents are all in their 80s and they're all doing extremely well and can do anything they want to, and that is exactly what they do, and I just look up to them and their age and how well they're doing for their age. So that is my goal. In my 90s, I can only imagine I'll have a decrease in my independence, possibly needing a nursing home. I am not sure. My grandparents have not made it to their 90s, but they're on track to make it to their 90s, so I'm assuming that is where they are headed as well. In conclusion, my infancy, I developed at a normal rate. I sat up, crawled, and walked all on time. My childhood, Along with many other skills, I learned how to competitively ride a horse and all the stages that I had to go through to get there. And as an adult, I am hoping to live as long and as healthy as my grandparents have. So yes, that is my lifespan and where I would like to go with it.